Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Discovering Dawson's Creek. There's a lot of intensity going on in
Yes.
these two episodes, really, particularly the first one that we're
Mm-hmm.
talking
Yes.
about today, as it is the second half of a two-parter. And I really feel like a little bit earlier on, a few weeks ago, when you were doing a quick flick through the rest of season 2 that we're gonna obviously have coming up,
Yeah.
and have had some on Discovering Dawson's Creek, and you were just noticing kind of episode after episode was like, oh, that's here too. I feel like this two-parter of To Be or Not to Be that we ended last episode with,
Yes.
and that is the question, episode 15 of season 2 that we are beginning this episode with. I feel like this is a pretty big element of season 2 of Dawson's Creek. It's the first two-parter, really, we've come
I mean,
across, isn't
I
it? In
thought
terms of
no, we had the sex she wrote, and that was a
I mean,
two-parter.
okay,
Essentially,
but
we even got a
even
nice "to be continued" on the
we
screen.
did. Yes, that's true, I suppose. But maybe I consider this more of a defined two-parter because even the
Yeah,
episode titles
are
are
connected, and
two-parter.
yeah, and we didn't get a "to be continued," so it wasn't like this.
No.
It's a more implied, like these are going to be a connective, because obviously the story is continuous, but these are like intimately connected. These two
Yeah,
episodes. Yeah.
intimately and immediately. And
Yes.
I I don't know why I wasn't necessarily expecting something like this to show up in Dawson's Creek, to be honest with you. Maybe it's just me brushing over the fact that it wouldn't have delved in to this sort of thing in the late 90s, or
Yeah.
maybe I should have just realized that it would have tried to, but does come across as it comes across, which is
Yeah.
a little bit
Oh,
dated in terms
yes.
of dealing
Over
with
dramatic.
somebody being gay.
Yes. It's a huge
Which
deal.
it's a huge deal, whereas it kind of shouldn't be a deal. And I think in shows we get now, it's not usually a deal unless that is what the show is about, or that is what
Yeah.
the movie is about. Which is maybe where my brain was at, because it feels like just something that is part and parcel of everyday life.
Yeah.
That maybe in 1999, when season 2 of Dawson's Creek was coming out, it was treated as it ends up being treated in these couple of episodes. Obviously, we got all the speculation about this
Yeah.
particular, about Jack being
Jack.
gay in
Yeah.
the last episode. But as I think we get immediately in to season 2, episode 15, that is the question. I will allow you to read off the synopsis, of course, from the binder. I feel like not only here do we get confirmation, and
Yes.
for my mind, quite surprising confirmation, given what we've got from Jack for the rest of the
Yeah.
season.
So yeah, I'm curious to get your thoughts on if it felt very abrupt, if it felt out of nowhere, or did they do enough to make his previous actions make sense to him being this all along and not really tapping into it? Or did it
I
just feel like
will
we need a gay character, so Jack, he could be gay now.
I will say this now before you read your
Okay.
synopsis. I think Jack is definitely bisexual, but the show doesn't quite realize that.
Okay.
And the show never gives itself, maybe because it's late 90s and it's either you are one or the other, and that kind of mentality.
Yeah. Okay.
Um because the way Jack has been with Joey for the rest of the previous rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he even
I don't get that there has to be an attraction there.
yeah, I mean, he was actively pursuing her. It wasn't like they
Yeah,
just kind of were hanging out and something happened. No, he was actually wanting to be with her and over here bragging about kissing her, to Dawson and all this. So
Exactly. So I'm not here telling Jack, you're not gay, you bi. I'm here telling
yeah,
Dawson's Creek as a show and writers and things like that open it up a bit more, because
yeah,
you can't just be this starkly different all of a sudden, kind of
yeah,
out of nowhere.
yeah. It feels a little abrupt.
I mean, well done for the drama of it, really good emotional drama
Yeah,
of this two-parter, of these couple of episodes. Really good acting.
yeah,
But does, from a writing standpoint, for me, there's no indication that this was ever going to happen for me
yeah,
in this. So, man, I don't know. Maybe I'm in
yeah,
too much
yeah.
about it.
And I'm also curious to see like how gay people feel about this. Like
Yeah, I
if
mean,
there are
that's a
gay
good
people who
point
have
as well.
had this experience, who had lived most of their life straight and maybe had these underlying feelings and didn't know how to process or were scared to process, so they just kind of pushed them away and tried to go through the motions. But Jack doesn't seem like he has to force himself or try to be with Joey. So that's why it's like,
No,
I don't know if that works. I always
no,
felt kind of like, once he's here and he's that's what he is for the rest of the show, it works.
yeah,
But I always felt a little weird about how sudden it was, and how they tried to make it feel organic, and that it was something that was always kind of there, but the show didn't really give us enough to believe that fully, I don't think.
yeah.
But
And I suppose in it, it does leave a little bit of a bad taste with just how worried everybody is about it
yeah.
as well. Like, it's not your issue. For one, it's Jack's issue that he has to deal with. And
Yeah.
you treating it like it's an issue is just making it more difficult for him.
Yeah, because I mean,
And
even Andy's original response wasn't great. The dad's response is
no,
terrible. Teasing at school, like, it should not be this big a deal.
it just shouldn't be this big a deal. But obviously, we're coming from it from the standpoint of straight people. So we don't quite have that insight.
Yeah.
We're coming at it from outsiders
Yeah.
that like to think we, understand
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
people and are open to many, many different types
Yes.
of people, but can't ever have that experience because we don't have that experience.
Yes.
Anyway, synopsis, binder.
All right. That is the question. Episode 215, The Truth and Its Consequences.
Again, consequences. There are no consequences.
Exactly. On Dawson's advice, Joey attempts to heal the wounds of her new romance with Jack, left shattered by rumor and innuendo. But when Jack confronts his innermost secrets, their lives and everyone's close to them will never be the same again. So
See, the drama is ridiculous. I mean,
as
why?
I'm reading
Why?
this, so dramatic.
I can't understand why it affects. I'm sorry that our entire discussion on episode 15 is going to be me going, I just can't
I just
understand
don't
how it
understand why
possibly
it's such
affects
a big
anyone
deal.
else.
I know. Well, I mean, we're still seeing it today. People existing as they exist don't affect your life in any significant way, but yet somehow you find something wrong with it. So, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
okay, Joey, I understand how it affects you.
yes, but it
100%.
literally affects no one else.
Nobody else at all.
um Meanwhile, for the first time in his life, Pacey stands up for what he believes in when he takes on an abusive teacher. But the consequences of his convictions are more than he could have imagined.
Yes, okay. So
So
maybe
Pacey's the
look,
consequence. consequences, I guess.
Pacey does have consequences from what he did, obviously, in the last episode. He gets suspended
Yes.
from school, doesn't he? He's having to hide out at Dawson's because he daren't go home
And
to
have
face
his dad
nonsense father,
criticize him. Yeah.
which is understandable. Pacey does have issues of that nature.
Yes.
Another reason why I just feel angry at certain aspects of the show at the moment, I think. And it's not anything against the show. I think we're just in a place story-wise that's making me a little bit, oh, for God's sake, why
Yeah.
are you annoyed and perturbed
Yeah.
and things like that? People are just being a bit terrible at the moment, and I'm not quite sure why. I wish it wasn't the case, but Pacey again is proving that season 2 is entirely Pacey's, even in an incredibly Jack-centered two-parter. He's
Yes.
taking the limelight.
And I'm glad
And
that Jack finally apologized to him and thanked him for,
yeah,
because the way he kind of came at him at first was very like,
yeah,
that's not cool. He's trying to stand up for you and you're just, coming down on him. So he finally recognizes that, Pacey did the right thing and he tells him that. So I like that we, circled back to it getting apology, which also just makes it the Jack shift kind of annoying, because I think every episode I've talked about how I love this show really, every little nugget of something is resolved or it comes back later. It's not ignored, so they've kind of set something up, and then when something related to it comes up, it all makes sense. But then
yeah,
you have this whole thing with Jack that just like wasn't set up or even kind of a nugget of a thing. Like, they could have made it so he wasn't so aggressively pursuing Joey, and that even in and of itself could have helped make it
yeah.
that maybe he's just trying to be straight because he's scared or he doesn't understand or he thinks if he ignores it he can, you know, pass by, you
Well,
know.
exactly. I mean, you don't need to stereotype it, and I think
Yeah.
you would have almost understood had a show of the age of Dawson's Creek maybe tried to stereotype it,
Yeah.
have him be in musical theatre, you know, but it doesn't even do that. So
Yeah.
whether my mind's thinking this is a show from the late 90s, if he was going to be gay, they would definitely stereotype it. But they never do that. So
No.
credit to them for never doing that. But
But they could have done
also,
other things. Like, instead of making him so aggressively pursue Joey, they could have had it so, he maybe makes such a close connection with Joey because he really doesn't have any friends. Joey takes the time to talk to him.
yeah,
He can talk to her about art and all of these things. He feels some type of pride or, attraction in the fact that he can show her things and be into her things, unlike Dawson. So he feels some type of way about that, and that he can be there for somebody in a way that no one else can be, and maybe those things endearing him to Joey, so that obviously he cares about her, and then it kind of proceeds as it proceeds because maybe he's pushing down these feelings that he's been having,
yeah,
and because he's kind of formed just a general bond with Joey, that's what kind of sparked this relationship. But the fact that they made him so, like, constantly staring at her and like really
mm,
playing up that he liked her, kissing her when she was still with Dawson, bragging about it, I would do it again kind of thing, attitude. That doesn't play to somebody who is confused or lost or, pushing something down,
I mean,
which is how
the
they
fact
which is
that,
how they say which is what they say he was been doing like this whole time when it is
yeah,
revealed.
I
So,
mean, the fact that I was convinced during the sex she wrote thing that it was Jack and Joey
yeah,
who were the ones who actually,
hooked up. Yeah.
hooked up, because he was the one who actually decided to
Get all the way and
bear
then see it.
everything
Yeah.
for her for drawing purposes.
Yeah.
I think, if there was any indication that this was going to happen, I don't think I would have thought that. But look, regarding it all, there's some really great emotional scenes in this episode
Yeah.
with him, and I here's another father to despise in Dawson's
Oh my
Creek as well,
gosh,
by the way,
yes. Yes.
because Andy and Jack's dad comes in from absolutely nowhere
Oh
because he's
yeah.
been just away and having left because obviously their mother's,
Not
you know,
well. His
suffering.
oldest son, who was
Was
seemingly from, the favorite, and the
yeah,
business is failing, so he's trying to like save the family business, and so he hasn't been around. But then the school, I guess, called him because he was getting all of these, all of this drama surrounding Jack and the teacher and all of
yeah,
this. It's kind of becoming an issue, so they call him to tell him he needs to come, and so they can talk about it.
yeah.
And he kind of just treats the whole thing like an inconvenience, like that he has to come down here and deal with them and what's going on and why do I have to be here, kind of thing. And just to circle back to, before we kind of move forward with you mentioning the sex she wrote thing, I think that is the
Yeah,
one thing they were banking on as their little clue to Jack potentially being gay, because the reason him and Joey didn't hook up, which is revealed later in the episode, of the sex she wrote, is because
oh, that's right.
he couldn't get it up, because he had that conversation with Jen and admitted to her that that's what happened.
That's right.
So
Yes,
yeah.
good point, actually.
Yeah. So I
Um,
just remembered that when you were talking about it, I was like, okay, maybe that's what that was their little kind of through line
yeah.
nod to
No,
that.
not that that sort of stuff can just
Can't
happen
happen.
anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, maybe that's where my mind was at when it was
He
doing that. I
confessed
wasn't
that to Jen.
thinking
Yeah.
about this kind of wider thing going on. But there's one thing that their father says, because he takes them out for this kind of dinner, and Andy's
Mhm.
kind of she likes her dad, I think.
Yeah, she's like very much always seeking his approval. She's
Yeah,
desperate for his approval.
she tries to really be in there. Jack understands his father for what he is, I think, as well.
Yes.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
And his father basically says, this family doesn't need another issue. Stop being gay. And
Yes.
what sort of a horrific thing to say is that to not
Exactly.
to anyone, let alone your own son, who's obviously going through just as much issues familial wise as you are,
Yeah.
the father.
Yes.
You've managed to you know go off and gallivant somewhere else and
Mhm. And
run
not have to
away
worry
from
about
responsibility.
exactly. And
Jack can't. Jack has
y-
to sit there and force it
yes,
and do it.
and be there to take care of the mother, and then he also kind of has to take care of Andy because she's been struggling as well. And the fact that he doesn't come back and acknowledge what his kids have to do in caring for their mother. Like
Yeah, have
that doesn't
some
even
resilience,
factor.
man.
Yeah, that doesn't even factor one tidbit into, you know, him wanting to relieve them, or seeing how difficult it is for them. Like he just leaves them in this situation, and that doesn't even come up for him at all when he shows up.
No, I was very annoyed. I was
Yeah.
very annoyed
Yeah.
by the father. Show some strength, you weak-willed, piddly little creature. You know,
Yeah.
just or don't even bother turning up at all,
Yeah.
because you might as well. It would have been easier for everybody, I think, if he just hadn't have turned up at all.
Yeah.
But to turn up and then go, stop making more problems for everyone. Oh, okay, yes, I'm making more problems for you. And this is what we come back to again, is that Jack's homosexuality is nobody else's deal but his
E-
own.
exactly.
So stop
Um
making it about you, weird man.
yes. So, Joey, she's still kind of trying to just hear Jack out, and he says he's not. So she's trying to like make things nice and romantic for him, upon Dawson's advice. And Dawson and Joey are in kind of this weird place
Very weird place to get as
where
well. Yes, there's a bit of back and forth going on
yes,
again.
where obviously there's kind of feelings still there, but they've kind of found themselves back in the friend
Yeah.
area. So they're hanging out, they're friends again, so it's nice to kinda see that dynamic, but then there's this added layer of honesty,
Mm.
where, she can talk about Jack with him, and he's not gonna be weird about it. They can make jokes and stuff, which we can get into in in the next episode.
Yeah, I suppose
Um,
that is a noticeable development on the Dawson
yeah,
and Joey front over the
yes,
course of these couple of episodes that we're into now, is they do have an ability, particularly Dawson, obviously in the next
yeah.
episode, does have an ability to now actually say what he means.
Yes, and he can criticize himself the way we criticize him. So I love that,
Yes, which is very nice.
yes, which we will
Which,
definitely get into in the next episode. He literally opens saying all the things that we say about him every week. So I love
hey,
the self-awareness.
self-awareness is the first step, Dawson.
Yes.
You got to be self-aware in
Yeah.
order to change at all,
Yes.
even if it's just a little bit. And
Yes.
you change one aspect, it's improvement. You've got to actually be aware of what you're doing. Um,
Yes.
so I give him credit for that in the next episode, but we will get there. But it
Yes.
is tough for Joey, this whole situation, because she is being
Yeah.
told by Jack that no, it's
Everything's
fine.
okay. It's
I'm still with you. But then he's also saying that when he's already in that same episode told his father, "Yes, Dad, I'm gay," and we've had this whole argument.
Well, yeah, I mean, so she was planning this nice dinner for them. She's got all dressed up, and then his dad came to town and wanted to take them out to dinner, so he had to cancel.
Yeah,
And then, his dad lays in on him all of the things like, you better not be and all of that. And so Jack kind of tells him off, and Andy's trying to mediate because, she just wants to impress him, and so she's telling him about all her, extracurricular things and this and that and the other. And then I think it's maybe like the next day that, he kind of calls Andy out on her just like
mm,
accepting these scraps from him. Like he's gonna go leave and go back to Providence, and Andy's trying to beg him to stay a little bit longer, and he's like, "No, I have to go." And Jack's like, "Yeah, just let him leave, Andy. Like you might be okay accepting all these little scraps from him and, you know, go bending over backwards to get him to be proud of you, but he doesn't care. So let him go." And that whole moment kind of builds and builds and builds, and he doesn't like how Jack's talking to him like that. And it all kind of is like all the emotions are kind of bubbling to the surface to where now Jack finally is able to admit
yeah,
to his father that he's gay. And Andy kind of sees how terrible his father handles it, and even how he talks about it. So then she finally kind of comes to that realization,
yeah.
and kind of gets really protective of Jack and sides with him and tells the father to leave. So
Andy needed that. I mean, my feelings towards Andy have become a little bit less favourable in
yeah, because I
recent
mean,
episodes.
even in this episode, her and Pacey still aren't talking after she
Yeah,
didn't support him in the whole situation. And her kind of attitude, I can't support you with it for everything you do. Like if you're with somebody, you might not always agree, but I think the point is to kind of support them if it's something they really
yeah,
believe in and they're not just doing it for frivolous reasons. And you know him well enough to know that he's never done anything like this in his life. So obviously it means something to him. And it's for your brother. So the fact that she like was not getting any of that, yeah, definitely had Andy looking a little to
yeah.
me.
It's a little bit annoying, but then she's going through her own problems herself, and you've got to understand that. You've got to
Yes.
recognize that, and you do. You just wish better. It's a case of wishing better for the characters rather than being, "I don't like
Yeah.
you."
Yeah, so we start this episode with a bit of stubborn, that neither of them talking to each other. Dawson imploring Pacey to just talk to her, but he's very much like,
Yeah,
no. When he does try, it's still a bit of an argument, but then ultimately, they do end up, figuring things out and coming together. So,
And I'm glad
um,
it does, because it
yeah.
feels meaningful. It feels a bit stronger in that regard, that you
Yeah,
can
because you
come
go
back
through
together after
something and
that.
come back. Yeah. And then with the kind of Joey situation, after he's told his father, he goes to her and he tells her, and she's sad. She seems very sad, but she's also, trying to be supportive and understanding. So, good on Joey for kind of trying to put on a brave face for Jack in this moment when
Yeah.
she's feeling her own hurt from it. And so then she goes to Dawson and kind of curls up in his arms and cries because of what happens. So yeah, that's kind of where we leave the big Jack situation, just the boiling point of his father and all of these
Yeah.
things. And ultimately it's revealed that yes, he is in fact gay. And then the other storyline we're dealing with is Pacey and the teacher. So he comes off of suspension and he goes to the library and he's looking up all these kind of teacher ethics things, and he writes it all out in a report, all of the ethics rules that Mr. Peterson has defied.
See,
And
this is what I was talking about last time, because I couldn't understand how Mr. Peterson could just get away with saying,
well,
I'm going to
yes,
fail you because I don't like you, and I'm going to do this to
yes,
anyone I
he
want and
literally,
ruin your
so
entire life. And you
yeah,
can't actually do that. And I was talking about it on the episode. That is
yeah,
actually an illegal thing to
that
do.
he's
I
talking
don't
about
understand
grades will be
how.
subjective. Yeah, you can't.
Right. I don't understand how the show can seemingly go along with
With
this whole idea that Mr. Peterson
can
holds
just
all the
do whatever.
cards.
Yes. So, I think before he does this whole crusade, he's back to school. He hands in his assignments and says, these are all the assignments I missed. I didn't want to fall behind. Obviously, Mr. Peterson doesn't give him much credit for that. And then, kind of goes on about this whole idea of, subjective grades, and,
Yeah.
everyone's grades are subject to his whims and all this nonsense. And so that's when Pacey does the research, and he actually writes this, all of the ethics violations from this teacher. Um, and he's given copies to the school board and all this stuff, and he goes to the principal and he tells her, this is what he has planned. And the principal is not even like, screw
No,
that lady. She's
terrible,
she's not
terrible woman.
receptive to the abuse of a teacher, or the abuse from a teacher at all. And the fact that this student who has been seen as this delinquent who never cares, who's putting this much effort, he's writing a little report, he's talking about he went to the school board, he's going to bring it up at the school board meeting, all of this stuff. He's going on this crusade, this kid who never seemingly cared about anything. And you're not clocking that, well, maybe this is important. That should be
Yeah.
enough for you, lady, to be like, oh, this kid really cares about this. There must be something to this kind of thing. Um, but yeah, no, so that principal sucks. And so then everyone kind of goes to Peterson's class and it's canceled. And then Pacey sees him sitting in there and he goes in there and they have this really interesting one on one. And,
Very interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and Peterson, like, the things Peterson says is, like, really strange, but, like, okay, I like this direction. So Peterson says, that he's not gonna go through some big old horrible school board meeting to hear, how he's failed. So he's just gonna retire. He was already 6 months from retirement anyway, so he just went early thanks to Pacey. And, Pacey says, well, I must say I am sorry for, what I did. And Pacey genuinely apologizes. And Mr. Peterson is like, when you did that, that was like the most integrity you've ever shown. Don't apologize for it. Like,
Yeah.
he kind of tells him, like, stick to your guns. He's actually kind of trying to teach him something and was like showing some respect for Pacey, showing that much initiative. Like, it was kind
Yeah.
of a weird, yeah, disarms Pacey a little bit.
I think once Peterson realized that he no longer had kind of teaching responsibility or responsibility for the members of his class, whatever that meant to him, I
Yeah.
think he was then able to actually go, you stood up for yourself. I understand that. okay,
Yeah.
you know, good for you for standing up for yourself. Don't ruin it by apologizing to me. I know what I've been like, but I was like that for a reason. I was like that because,
I thought I was teaching you something, he's kind of
yeah,
saying, yeah.
he's not under, I don't think Peterson's under any illusion, but I just think that was how he liked to be
Yeah.
as a
He liked
teacher.
he liked wielding this power over
Yeah.
people, I think,
But
and
now
he
he doesn't
probably
have that
wasn't.
anymore, so he
Yeah.
doesn't need to be like that in
Yes,
his own mind.
he can be very candid with Pacey and say, "Yeah, I, like, kind of low key mad respect for what you did."
Yeah.
Yeah. So really interesting kind of conversation with Pacey and Mr. Peterson. Um, and yeah, that's kind of what ends that storyline in Pacey's
Yeah.
little crusade. Yeah.
The only other thing really going on is Jen and Ty,
Oh
isn't it? Which
yeah.
crosses over obviously these couple of episodes as well. So I think we can speak about this and move on into episode 16. But this is getting a little bit contentious in parts because I think Ty's getting a little bit odd
Yeah.
and just uncomfortable in some
Well, yeah, I mean,
scenes
even in this episode,
that come out of nowhere
he's
again and very quick and everything's very sudden.
yes, and he's very, I think even Dawson and Joey are kind of confused about him as well because he's kind of all over the
Yeah.
place. And Jen is very much like, I don't think this is gonna work, dude. You're all churchy. I'm not churchy. And he keeps being persistent, saying, no, we can make it work. We can make it work. So I think, yeah, when I remember when Jack cancels on Joey, she's like, you know what? I'm dressed up. I'm gonna call Dawson. Let's go do something. So that's when,
Yeah.
she goes out with Ty and Jen, and he's over there playing jazz piano and like ordering uh martinis for everybody and all this whole
Yeah.
thing, and they're like, what's this dude's deal? Like, she's like, I don't know, man. Like, Jen is just kind of going with the flow because she thinks he's cute, and he keeps assuring her that their differences are going to be a problem, even though she knows, because this is what, like, the third time she's like taking him back, because first it was the churchy thing, and then it was the
Yeah.
gay thing. And like, yeah.
It's odd,
Yeah.
really. Because Ty, I think he's an odd character that has come out of nowhere in my mind. I can't
Yeah.
quite make heads or tails of him at all. Because like everybody else, I think, because he's hyper religious but also forgets all that conveniently and goes out on binge drinking sessions.
Yes, he's drinking alcohol underage. He's, at this seedy jazz bar all the time. But then he's Bible study, and gay people are bad, and
It doesn't
super
make any
judgmental.
sense.
Yeah, he's kind of all over the place. That's why Jen is like, it's not gonna work, but he keeps insisting that it's gonna work. Just to mention, this is also the scene where we do kind of see a funny, friendly, honest banter between Joey and Dawson, because I think they're all
Yeah.
kind of talking about like who has it the worst. Like, Dawson's like
Yeah.
talking about, I'm a total loser sitting here between two girls who dumped me. And then I think I can't remember what Jen kind of laments about. And then Joey's like, I'm dating a guy who's probably gay. And then like they're like, you win, kind of thing. So I like kind of that the three of them have kind of eased into a friendship, and it kind of speaks to how it took us a long time to get here. Because like, if you think
Yeah.
off the surface of your brain, if you think about the show, you just think these four characters were always friends or something,
And they never are, all
no,
four.
it's like, yes. And so to kind of finally see them being able to joke about the dynamics and laugh about it and have just kind of cordial conversation. And even the fact that like Joey was like, I'm not gonna sit at home. I'm gonna call Jen and Dawson and go hang out with them and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I love that we're seeing this kind of evolution in the friend group finally.
Yeah. Now I think we can move into episode
Yes.
16 titled Be Careful What You Wish For, because that nice friendship dynamic that you've just been so eloquently talking about Janine. Well, it lasts for 2 seconds before Dawson decides to go and spoil it again.
Yeah,
Back and
Dawson.
forth, back and forth, back and forth. You promised me this would stop, and it's just getting worse and worse.
So
Get
yes,
into it.
episode 216. Be careful what you wish for. Singing the blues.
Oh, yes, God.
On the eve of Dawson's 16th birthday, Dawson, Pacey, and Andy follow their therapist's advice and throw themselves into an unabashed night of recklessness and the blues. Meanwhile, back at the Leary house, Joey is organizing a surprise party for Dawson, but the longer the guest of honor is a no-show, the more she is subject to surprises of her own. Jen and Ty face up to their potentially irreconcilable differences, and Gail and Mitch come to a decision about how to raise their son in light of their separation.
Yes. I think the Mitch and Gail thing is a tiny little element of this episode. But
Yeah,
it
because
is important that
yes,
they're becoming a
Gail.
little bit more manageable with each other.
Yes, and then obviously Dawson's kind of outburst drags them into it as
Of
well.
course.
So Gail and Mitch are kind of talking about Dawson's birthday present, and without discussing it with Mitch, Gail has bought Dawson a car. And
Yes.
so he's very much upset about that because it's such a big decision, and why wouldn't she have discussed it with him? And then it's kind of like his financial status kind of comes into play in the conversation. And so they're kind of arguing, and Dawson's kind of having to just sit and, because Mitch came over to cook Dawson birthday breakfast, because apparently that's the tradition, because I think Gail walks into the kitchen and sees him there and she's like, "What are you doing here?" kind of thing.
Which is a
And
little bit odd when you actually think about it. They would just come waltzing in to do this thing. It's like,
yeah, so
nobody in
yeah.
this show makes up the mind properly.
I
I
know.
don't like why does nobody stick to decisions they make?
Exactly, including being gay.
Including
Jack.
being gay.
Yeah.
Jack. It's not a decision.
No,
it's not.
not. I mean, how it's framed in the show,
how you
it
are.
looks like a decision.
It does, but
Actual
it's how
gay
you are.
people,
But,
it is.
come on.
Yes, but I don't know how Jack did it. Just felt weird. But anyway, yeah. So they kind of get into a bit of an argument, and Dawson is kind of like, so that's like just an early on stressor for Dawson to kind of get to where he gets to later in the episode. So he has to kind of listen to them arguing on his birthday. So that already kind of kills the vibe for him. And then there's a plan, for Pacey and Andy to take Dawson out so that they can bring him back to the house upon Joey's order. And she's trying to throw him this birthday party, the 16th birthday party.
Yeah. Which is very nice of her, obviously.
Yeah, because as we talked, it seems like they've eased back into this friendship. And Jack shows up. So everyone's kind of, we're kind of cutting back and forth between Andy, Pacey, and Dawson, and what's happening at the party. And when we're at the party, everyone's there. Who invited Abby to this party? Like,
who invited Abby? Nobody knows.
Abby's there with her snooty friends, and even we've seen throughout earlier in the episode, they're kind of like, "Ooh, Jack, I never met a gay guy before," and they're all kind of like putting this like fascination.
It's one of the stupidest things I can imagine.
This gay person, he barely kind of understands what he's going through, and they're just like, gawking at him. So when they see him again at the party, Abby's kind of flirting with him and talking about, he might be kind of confused, and she almost takes it as a challenge to see if she can like get the gay guy kind of thing. So she constantly is bugging Jack all night and flirting with him and all this kind of thing.
I mean, it's really just a case of how can we possibly make one person worse and worse and worse and worse as a show goes on. What horrible thing can we get Abby to do next?
Yeah,
it seems to be the mentality. I mean, it tried a few episodes ago to give her a little bit.
Yeah, they gave her these like glimmers of humanity and redemption. And then she's back to her same old nonsense. So
Surprising.
yeah, I mean, all of that kind of her bugging Jack all night comes to a head in a really interesting way at the end of the episode. But to cut back to um Pacey, Andy, and Dawson, Pacey ends up kind of having to play wrangler. So they do end up going to that jazz club that Ty took them to. It looks like.
Again.
Yeah. And they're all hanging out and they're drinking cokes and they kind of decide, maybe we should have a drink. And so when the lady
Mm.
asks them, they kind of just play it like, oh, our cokes, didn't have enough rum in them this last time. She's like, oh, I'll double up the shots for these next ones. So Pacey just thinks they're drinking coke, but they're really drinking rum and coke and they're getting like super wasted. So it's just about time to head back for the party. At this point, they've had a bunch of rum and cokes. Pacey doesn't know because he thinks they're drinking coke. But when they
Can
get
we?
kind of wild and go up to sing the blues, I think Pacey is
Yes.
now well aware that he's been duped.
Yeah, I would like to just talk about this a little bit because it's just awful. No, I mean it's a good scene. I enjoy it. I enjoy
Yeah.
watching Dawson and Andy up there going, "My life's the worst. Here's all the reasons why. Let's sing about it." And it's incredibly stereotypically blues as well,
Yeah.
which is
I mean, they do a good job. I mean, Dawson sings pretty
stunning.
good. And like he's
I mean, they don't
decent.
sing too bad. Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
actually
I
sing
mean,
too bad.
Andy did more of a talking thing, but I like that she worked around her maybe lack of ability to sing and she kind of still just had fun with it. So
Yeah. Um, you can imagine though this actually being a thing in some sort of blues clubs
yeah.
somewhere, and they just invite mildly depressed people up on stage to just say, let just put it all out there. We'll
Yeah.
play the blues tune
Yeah.
behind it,
And then they just say some stuff.
and you just get it off your chest. And is that a good thing to do? Is that a bad thing to do? Let's make your own mind up about that. It has the potential to come off as staggeringly whiny, I think. And
Yeah.
oh god,
Yes,
everything's
but they're
terrible.
drunk, so
It's
they're
never
having fun with
actually as
it.
terrible. They are, yes,
Yes.
okay, but it's never actually as terrible as all that. And
Yes.
some of the phrasing in these little blues songs as well is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the rhyming couplets are
Oh, I know, Andy. My
outrageous.
name is Andy, and my boyfriend makes me Randy.
I mean, it makes me feel a little bit sick sometimes, but
But I think also in the blues
I
song,
do quite
in
enjoy it.
Dawson's version, he like says that he knows that there's a surprise party, and so Pacey's like,
Right.
"Oh shoot!" So he ends up taking them there. They walk in like all crazy. And Joey's like, oh my gosh, are they? He's like, yeah, they slipped some cokes past me. And she's like, oh my gosh, okay. So Joey's like trying to get Dawson, so it's before his parents see. She gets him some coffee. She's like kind of trying to take him upstairs, and he's just laughing and being goofy. And then they go into his room, and Jack and Abby are making out.
Inexplicably.
Yes. So
There's too many things. I've realised actually recently, Janine, that there's just too many things in Dawson's Creek that don't make sense to me anymore.
yeah, so, Jack
Is
is
it
feeling some
supposed to be like that?
I mean, I guess it's just supposed to play in the confusion of being a teenager. Adolescent confusion.
Am I
Um,
supposed to be sat here going, I don't quite know where everybody's at anymore?
yeah, so I think he just, is feeling in this weird place, and Abby was giving him attention, and so he just didn't know how to handle it, or I don't know, remember kind of what excuse he gives for doing it, but obviously you just dumped Joey because you're
Yeah.
supposedly gay, and now here I see you making out with another girl, and Abby at that, terrible Abby. So Yeah, Joey is rightfully pissed off. Um, and he ultimately explains like even, nothing would have gone farther than just kissing. Like I would have, you know,
No, that's
ended
fine.
things.
That's okay then.
Yeah. Yes, that's yeah. But I guess he just needed to kind of see, or he just was trying to feel normal, and that kind of thing was his
I
reasoning.
despair. I despair at the
Yeah.
things going on at the moment. I also despair at, but appreciate Dawson and his tirade that comes.
Yeah. Oh, well, we didn't quite talk about him kind of like lamenting at the beginning of the episode about how he's this whiny loser who who hasn't done
Yes,
anything and hasn't
very
evolved.
nice.
Like everyone's evolved at least a little bit, and he's still in the same place, just whining and being obnoxious. So he kind of
Yes, he.
admits that he is whiny and hasn't really moved the needle for himself at all. Um, so
But his decision to get away from doing that, um, his decision is to go after Joey again. After we've just had one half of an episode where
oh
it seems like
yeah.
everybody's nice and friends for the
Yeah.
first time ever, and it's actually good. Dawson decides, I know what I'm gonna do. Go and do the same thing that ruined
Yeah.
my mentality for the first half of
Well,
the
we didn't
season.
also mention in the last episode that Joey, a lot of her insecurity stemming from Jack potentially being gay, because I don't think she had known at that point, or maybe I can't remember if this was before or after she found out. I think it's after, from the last episode where she thought, you know, she kind of had hoped that he was gay. Otherwise, she would have been really scared that it was her, that she wasn't sexy.
Well, yeah.
And so and again, playing to her being able to talk to Dawson about this, someone she was with and that whole kind of thing. And he, ends up telling her this whole long speech about how sexy he thinks she is and all the quirky things about her that are so hot and this and that. So, yeah, I think it's brewing that, like, he's kind of gonna ease his way back in because now, Jack isn't in the picture.
But if
So,
we were going to do that, I don't understand why we had to go from the beginning of the season, and it was that, to like 2 episodes later, after all the build up of the first season, 2 episodes later to go, no, actually, this doesn't work. And then Jack ends up getting involved, and then and then we're back to where we were again now. And I don't
yes.
like being back to where we were.
I
I like
know, the back and forth and back and forth.
continuation.
Yes. So yeah, I think a determined Dawson kind of declares that he's gonna get Joey back, and that's gonna be his whole kind of thing that he wants to do. But yeah, he shows up at the party. They catch Jack and Abby. Dawson's just like cracking up at it. Um,
Because
and
he's
then
absolutely hammered.
Yes, and so when it comes time for the cake and the singing, he's super
Mm,
drunk. His parents clock that he's drunk, and then he decides to go on this big honest tirade and telling
yes.
everybody
Very
what's
good.
what.
Very
Yes.
nice. I actually like this. I do.
Yes, like he's teasing Joey about needing to go find herself. Where is she? Hey Joey, where are you? Did you find yourself? Ooh, like kind of being a jerk about Joey needing that space. Again, criticizing his dad for not getting a job. I mean, we love Mitch and in terms of Dawson's Creek fathers, because I mean, I think we're also going to meet Joey's father. And, again, I think, we met him obviously
Ah.
in jail. So, Dawson's Creek dads aren't the best. So, Mitch is
But
winning
Joey's
on it.
father, while he was in jail, what was a pleasant man, I think. Really,
Yeah.
he wasn't unlikable at all. I
Yeah.
don't
But he
think,
already
was
just
he?
loses points because he was in jail.
But he was
Um,
in prison. Why
yes.
was he in prison? I forget why.
Drugs, like
Drugs.
drug
So
dealing and that kind of
okay. So
thing.
he
But
probably is
also, I
is a
think,
is a reasonably decent
well,
person
I
then.
think Joey mentions also that he cheated on her mom when she was
No,
dying of cancer as
no.
well.
Oh, that's right. Yes, maybe he isn't. Maybe he's terrible.
Yeah, so
Maybe he's actually a terrible
amongst
person.
amongst Dawson's Creek dads, unemployed Mitch is like the best one.
At
But
least,
for
Mitch
real,
has a good heart.
yes. Well, he needs to get a good job too.
he needs to get some sort of life. Yes.
Yes. And yeah, it's a big argument that I think they both have too, Mitch and Gail, about how he's not contributing because he's not working and all this whole kind of thing. So yeah, Dawson just kind of lays into everybody because he's drunk. And it's this whole kind of embarrassing thing. And then we kind of cut to him and Andy barfing in the
Yes.
bathroom and feeling
I think he ends up
terrible.
falling into his own cake as well, doesn't
Oh
he?
yeah, he does.
Which is
Yes.
funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I mean,
Yes.
talk about traditional early 20th century slapstick nonsense. Falling into your own birthday
Drunk.
cake is just top
Yes.
tier.
Yes. So yeah, cut to him and Andy being violently sick in the bathroom. And
Two
Gail real
rum and cokes. They had two. It
no,
wasn't
they
very
had
much, was
I
it?
think they had more because Pacey was
I
like,
was,
man, because they give Pacey a line that's like, man, how many cokes are you guys gonna have, kind of thing.
I
So
was
he
joking then. I was joking. The 16. They can't handle the
yes,
rum.
definitely not. No, no. And then they also almost get the place in trouble because she didn't realize that they were underage. And Andy's just like drunk. So
That's
she's
right.
like, you could lose your liquor license because we're only 16. And Tracy's like, she's joking. I'm not joking. We're 16. Like, I got Andy shot. Um, and then that kind of it turns into this bit of like a gotcha kind of thing, I guess, with Mitch, with Gail having to realize maybe he wasn't quite ready for a car. You're right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna take it back to the dealer, and maybe you guys can. Mitch talks about getting some old beat up car and like fixing it up with him, kind of thing. So yeah, Dawson doesn't get his car because he was wasted.
Which look on you. Do you drink on your 16th birthday? Probably. Even
Maybe now,
so,
yeah.
some
I didn't.
some degree.
I didn't.
Oh well, aren't you very good?
Yes. Well,
Um,
you have a sooner shot to drink than me over there, so
I
because
mean
you're
that's
so
right.
mature over there, so much more
No,
mature.
it's just far more lax in Britain, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, it's one
Yes.
thing I've truly never understood. There's many things, particularly at the moment, I just do not understand about the US, fundamentally. But one thing that has always been consistent, no matter what the rest of the state of that particular country may be like, is my utter non-understanding of the strictness of alcohol compared to everything else in the country.
Right?
Like, it's fine to do anything but drink.
I mean,
If you
yeah.
drink, prison, death sentence. But you can do anything else and it's okay.
I don't know about that. I don't know if it's
It
that
feels like
lax.
it's always felt like that, to the point where when I've been in the US, you've known this yourself because we've been together.
Yes.
I feel like if I'm drinking in the US, that it's illegal. I just feel like it's illegal to do that
Oh my
because it's
gosh.
so strict, and it feels like, oh, am I allowed to have this drink here, or do I have to have it
Yes.
like when I'm under a roof? Do I have to have it when someone else is watching
Oh
me?
yes. Like no, it's just like you can't like be walking around the streets with your open containers. Yeah. Is that what you
See,
were
like
talking about?
I mean, you can't even like walk down the street with. I wouldn't be able to walk down the street with a bottle of wine
No.
and just have it, would I?
And
Not
drinking.
open,
No.
not open, just an obviously closed, fully sealed,
I mean,
and just walk to somewhere having bought a bottle of wine, and it would have to be covered over. It would
yeah,
have
it
to be
might
in a
be in a
brown
bag or
paper bag.
something. Yeah.
Why? Why? It feels
Immediately. Public
everything to do with
drunkenness.
alcohol. It's not public drunkenness. Everything to do with alcohol
Public
in the US
drunkenness
feels
for holding a
illegal.
bottle. You're gonna get drunk with that from that
I've
bottle.
I've been reasonably drunk in the US, of which you have seen, and it felt I felt so on edge because I felt like at any point, and this is definitely
Well,
movies
did
and
you
TV's fault, some random group of police officers are going to come and I'm going to end up in prison. And because I'm not a
that is
citizen, it's going to be a big deal and I don't know what to do.
yes, no, that is an exaggeration for sure. Yeah, like I think in most places you're not be allowed to walk around with an open container of alcohol. Um, but other than that, like I haven't experienced anything super strict in terms of you know, that type of situation. But
But like they check your ID. And I know that should be like, oh well, that's fine, but my ID's not been checked in Britain and other countries in Europe since I was about 18.
okay, yeah, no, that's a normal thing to check.
And it's just like, 50-year-olds will get their ID
Well,
checked in the US,
at
and I
this
can't
Cape
understand it.
well, at this Cape side speakeasy,
Well, yeah, they don't care there, do they? I might as well
they're
go
not
there.
checking
That
IDs at all. 16-year-olds are getting out booze, so,
I'd probably
um
feel comfortable there. Take me there.
yes, speakeasy, yeah, they don't care about your ID, but, speaking of the speakeasy, Ty's place,
Uh,
yeah, I think that's generally what we get with Dawson and all that whole situation. Um Ty and Jen, start kissing and now they're kind of, making out. And then Ty
mm.
constantly stopping it because, oh, it's too much. He can't handle it. So sinful. She's like, dude, like, what is wrong with you? We're literally just kissing. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't want us to go too far. And she's like, well, who says I want to go too far? Like,
Well, exactly.
I'm literally dating you because I'm trying to, like, calm that down and just see what a nice relationship was like without sex, kind of muddling up the works. But he's just under this assumption that that's who she is. And, if he, feeds into it with, how much he wants her, she'll easily do that too. But she was literally like, I was not planning on doing more than kissing you. Like, dude.
Exactly. But
But
he's
he, yeah.
100% ready to pants down, jump up and down
Yes,
situation.
and that's too against the
No,
Lord, so yeah,
sinful, 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 sinful.
yes.
Well, if
So
it's
he
so simple, don't do it in the first place then.
exactly. So he ends up kind of rejecting her, pushing her away because she's gonna make him want to do sinful things, and it's, like, almost
I
her
don't like
fault.
him.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the last straw. Like, so he made her feel really shitty in assuming that she would kind of corrupt him,
Do you
kind of
mean,
putting
please
the
tell me this Thai character has come out of nowhere, lasts 3 episodes and then goes away?
yeah, this is pretty much the end of Ty. I mean,
Okay,
if you
that's
saw
fine.
Jen's response to him, I think that
Yeah.
tells you everything you need to know.
Well, I
Um,
don't know if he was gonna hang around and be, the town preacher or
no.
something.
No, definitely not. But yeah, I mean, he rejects Jen. He essentially blames her for his horniness and
Yes.
you know,
A good righteous thing to do.
yeah, and doesn't trust the fact that she is not with him for that. She's trying to kind of take this easier course of not hooking up with people, and he just assumed that she was. So,
It's
yeah,
that kind of mentality stems, or it's that kind of mentality that grows. I'll say it. Predators. It is. You are it is your fault. I want you. It is your
yes,
fault.
yes, it's because
I'm
of what
so
you
horny all the
wore.
time.
Yes, because of what you wore,
No.
you deserved it because
What are
you were enticing me.
what are you actually talking about? And then he goes, oh, it's sinful. Oh, it's sinful. Well, don't do it in the first place then. Why don't you
Exactly.
just, if you have this mentality, which you clearly do have, and that's fine, and go and be churchy, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely fine. Make a decision. This is another
Yes.
thing of make a decision. Do you want to just be a freewheeling, free loving person, or do you want to be a heavily religious figure? If you want to be a
and
heavily religious figure, then everything that's sinful, then don't do it. You might as well be a 11th century monk, you know.
yeah, and Jen has been calling out his wishy-washy back and forth stuff since they started seeing each other, but he keeps insisting that it'll be different, it'll be fine, like,
You
and
cannot be coming out with "Stop making me horny," though. It's your
yeah,
fault
that's
I'm
essentially
feeling
what
this
he was
way.
saying,
You
and so
can't be
Jen
coming out with
yeah,
that.
so Jen is very hurt, and she closes the door in his face, and that's kinda the end of that whole situation. So,
Yes, good.
yeah.
Craziness of a couple of episodes, really. I mean, I'm interested to see what comes next, to be honest. I have to assume it's going to be. I mean, you've alluded to the fact that Dawson is going to do something particularly heinous by the end of the season. And I
We're
could
almost
only imagine this is, or the course of the next couple of episodes, there's going to be a little bit more pursuit of Joey again on his behalf. I'm not too sure where everybody else is going to fit, but that seems to be what is likely to happen with them. And then you've told me he does something heinous, so that's not going to last too much longer either, is it? Because we're on episode 17 and 18 of season 2 next week, and I think there's
yes.
what, 22.
22, so we're almost there. Yeah.
So it's
Psychic Friends, the next episode.
psychic friends. I mean,
Yeah.
I dread to think. And what's episode 18? A perfect wedding.
A Perfect Wedding. Mm-hmm.
So there's a wedding involved. Okay.
219. Rest in peace.
No, or a funeral. Who dies? Oh, it's gonna get silly. Do I enjoy Dawson's Creek? Yes, I do. Am I deeply emotionally invested? Yes, obviously I am. That's why I'm so annoyed at everything that's going on. Why have you done this to me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Why have you done this to me? It'll be okay, because obviously Discovering Dawson's Creek, this show alternates Mondays with Ted Lasso, a much
Yes.
lighter, nicer, more happy show about
Yes.
happy things and people getting through difficulties to come out positive
Yes.
and triumphant. And this Dawson's Creek is anything but. Dawson's Creek is everybody having it okay and doing everything in their power to ruin their own lives.
Essentially. Well, yeah.
Essentially, it's the
Yeah.
opposite, the
Join in my
antithesis of each
torture.
other.
Yes. Join in my decades-long torture.
Yes, this is why you've done it. It's a psychological game, isn't it?
Yes.
You've done it
Yes.
for this reason, I see.
Yes.
But we will be back, obviously, with Discovering Dawson's Creek in a couple of weeks' time. Talking Ted Lasso alternates Mondays on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel with this show. Subscribe, ding your notification bell, of course, on this channel for all the fun stuff we have, and subscribe, obviously, to the main podcast feed for Morgan Hasn't Seen and for It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show, every Wednesday and Friday. Wherever you get your podcasts on all major platforms there. Everything's been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen as well throughout the episode. The Patreon donation links are in the description. Social media is all down there as well. Merch, if you want, obviously. Such things as new logos that have been designed. Exciting for both shows, obviously. That's all very nice. They are very, very available in all kinds of ways,
Yeah.
T-shirts and mugs and stickers and everything you could possibly
Yeah.
imagine, really. Cushions, you can get a cushion, I think.
Yeah.
If you want, nice gift for yourself or for others.
Yes.
We should do this at Christmas. It's not Christmas now, we're past that.
Past.
Is there anything else to say? I don't think there is, really.
That's everything.
It's exciting times. We'll be back. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for watching and listening to Discovering Dawson's Creek. As always, thank you for supporting. As always, Janine, anything else you have to say?
Just 3, 2, 1.
And I was going to ask you to do your best drunk Dawson, and you've got out of it. I will remember this for next time. I will remember. Bye.
Bye.